I want to talk to you about something that might hit close to home. You know, when people pick up a new interest, normal folks, they dip their toes in, they Google it once, maybe twice. They buy some basic equipment. They sign up for a weekly class. They stick with it. They get better gradually. They enjoy it. It's a hobby. Just a hobby, a thing they do sometimes. Imagine that. Imagine trying something new without it, immediately transforming into your entire personality, your lifestyle, your 5-year business plan, your reason for existing, all before lunchtime. For some of us, especially those with attention regulation differences, trying a new activity isn't just picking up a hobby. It's a complete personality overhaul that might last anywhere from 4 minutes to 7 business days. We're not collecting hobbies. We're collecting potential lives. Every single time we try something new, we're not just learning a skill, running this intense psychological experiment. We're asking ourselves this deep, almost desperate question. Could this finally be the life that actually fits me? Could this be the thing that makes sense? Let me tell you what happened to me just last month. I walked into a meditation class for the first time. Just curious, you know? The instructor looked at me afterward and said she couldn't believe it was my first session. That's all it took. That one comment. I'm lying in bed that night researching whether I could realistically relocate to some remote mountain retreat and become a mindfulness teacher. Because her comment made me feel something. It made me think maybe I'd found it. Maybe this was who I was supposed to be all along. Let's dig into this for a moment, because there are some really good reasons why this happens. Most human beings feel out of place somewhere in their lives. We look around trying to find our people, trying to find where we belong. I remember when I was studying medicine, I went in with this crystal clear plan. I was going to become a cancer doctor. My father was a cancer doctor. He was brilliant at it. He worked at one of the most prestigious cancer centers in the world. He came from another country and built this incredible career. He did groundbreaking research. His patients revered him. He made excellent money. The institution he worked at was massive and influential. I saw all of this and thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to be some small-time specialist helping people with minor complaints. I'm going to save lives. I'm going to cure serious disease. That was the plan. Then I actually started medical school and ran into a real problem. During my rotation in the mental health department, this thing called reflection hour. It was named after this particular doctor who worked there. Psychiatrist would come in and sit with a group of medical students in a room. Here's the thing though, he wasn't teaching us anything in the traditional sense. We'd just be in a room with him for 1 hour each week. We had no idea what we were supposed to be doing there. We were genuinely worried. We thought this guy was going to psychoanalyze us. Everyone would file into the room. He wouldn't introduce himself. He'd just come in and sit there, silent. Completely silent. We're all sitting there thinking, oh no, this is it. These psychiatrists are analyzing us right now. He's sitting in silence. We know he's sitting in silence. He knows he's sitting in silence. He hasn't explained why we're here. We don't know what the point is. Heard stories from older students about this weird ritual. We'd ask them what actually happens, and they'd just shrug, said it was a waste of time. Nobody could really explain it. So during this reflection hour, he'd make some minimal attempt at conversation. People stayed quiet. We weren't about to let him psychoanalyze us. Then he pulled out an apple, started eating it. Just sitting there, eating his apple. We're all watching him thinking this is some kind of experiment. This has to be an experiment. This was the moment I decided to become a psychiatrist, though I didn't realize it yet. He ate that apple down to the core. Then he did something that blew our minds. He ate the core. Just took the whole thing and bit into it. He chewed up the seeds, swallowed them. The entire room erupted. What are you doing? You can't do that. Are you serious right now? He just looked at us like, what? Then he ate the rest of the core. Then he had just the stem left. Everyone's freaking out now. Why would you do that? He's still acting confused. What's the problem? Then he ate the stem. Everyone lost it. Don't you know that those seeds contain poison? We're in medical school. We know this stuff. That poison can kill you. He just looked at us innocently. Really? They have poison. Just like that, he popped the tension in the room. Suddenly, everyone was talking. We couldn't help ourselves. We'd been completely outplayed by this guy. We knew he was going to get us to talk. We absolutely knew it. We were determined not to talk. He was going to sit in silence. We were going to sit in silence too. But he just ate an apple. Game over. He won. I was amazed. I kept thinking, what was that? Just happened there. I went to meet with him afterward. That's how I found my people. Here's what's scary about life. We have this idea that people find where they belong, and that's what we're all searching for. The person in that original story was talking about attention differences. One of the issues with this condition is that people often say everyone with it does this specific thing. These patterns do happen frequently with people who have attention regulation challenges. Let me explain why. It doesn't happen exclusively with them, but let's talk about this idea of a hobby becoming your entire life. I fell in love with psychiatry. We're all looking for that thing to fall in love with. Here's the first thing you need to understand, and I hate to tell you this. If you're actively searching for the thing you're meant to fall in love with, the chances are you won't actually fall in love with it. This is just my observation after years of clinical work. I decided to be celibate. Then I met my wife. I decided to be a real doctor, save lives, cure cancer. Then I fell in love with psychiatry. See, when we're actively hunting for something, we're so hungry for it. We're desperate. Is it this thing? Is it that thing? Is it this other thing? We get just the tiniest hint of something, just a little taste. We think, oh my God, is this the thing I'm meant to do? You get this tiny touch of possibility and you're like, oh, finally, I found it. Thank God. What happens? It turns out not to be your thing after all. You abandon that hobby. You're not actually a chess person. So what happens next? The searching becomes more frantic, more desperate. Oh no, that wasn't my thing. That wasn't my thing either. None of these are my thing. Please let this next one be my thing. The moment something even slightly positive happens, you get excited. You think this is me. Finally, I found the thing I've been looking for. Do you see how the hunger becomes a bias in how you think? It becomes rose-colored glasses. The more desperate we are to find something, the more excited we get about possibilities. That's where the attention regulation issue comes in. People with these challenges are more vulnerable to this pattern. They're more vulnerable to emotional swings. There are other reasons too, but let's start with this idea that if I'm hungry for something, if I'm actively searching for it, and I get some tiny sign of it, here's the problem. Remember, I haven't found my tribe. I haven't found my personality. I don't know what it feels like to have a solid identity. Don't know what love is, and then something feels kind of nice. It's like that meme where the butterfly lands and someone asks, is this love? We don't know yet because we haven't found ourselves. We don't know what finding ourselves looks like. Therefore, when we see something, this must be finding myself. But it's not. It's just what we think finding ourselves should look like. In my experience, actually finding yourself is usually done kicking and screaming. You're dragged toward it. It's an uphill battle. Well, not always. That's what's strange about it. It's kind of an uphill battle, but it also feels natural, creating literally thousands of educational materials. It seems like people are still struggling with focus and motivation. Real challenge. Let me get back to the main point. Why are we so hungry for a hobby to become our entire life? Let's understand what your life actually is, what your perception of your life consists of. We should talk about attention regulation challenges because I think it's a perfect example of this phenomenon. I'm going to be this kind of person. What does that actually mean? From a neuroscience perspective, from a developmental psychology perspective, cognitive perspective, who we are is a string of emotional experiences woven together into a narrative. When I talk about my life, I have that story about the reflection hour with the apple. That was a defining moment for me. Makes it defining is the emotion of that moment. I was blown away. Your life isn't about eating the same sandwich every day for 30 years. It's about the emotional experiences. We string them together into a narrative, and that narrative becomes who we are. If you have attention regulation challenges, this becomes a real problem because chances are your emotional experiences have been largely negative in nature. You were getting in trouble at school. You were being yelled at by your parents. You weren't getting invited to parties. Then you develop an identity based on these experiences. There's excellent research on the overlap between attention challenges and depression. If you look at the relationship between these two conditions, 3% of people diagnosed with major depression will later be identified as having attention challenges. People who have both conditions, only 3% had the depression first and then developed attention difficulties. But here's the striking part. 70% of people who had attention challenges will develop depression when you look at populations with both conditions. Now, every time I evaluate someone for attention regulation issues, one of the first things I do in the initial assessment is rule out depression. They have depression until proven otherwise. That's now my default assumption as a clinician. The identity that develops from these experiences is not a positive one. There's one common exception to this pattern, which is the class clown. Often people will develop an identity around being funny. I remember in 3rd grade, I had trouble making friends. So what did I do? Underwear on my head and ran around talking in funny accents. The kids liked me when I did that. You develop this identity as the funny kid, the class clown. Then you grow up into adulthood, and that kind of behavior doesn't really work when you're 43 years old. You have to find something else. Now you're searching for a new identity. Then you encounter a hobby and you see people who do that thing and you think, oh, I want to be that kind of person. Because if I find that thing, if this becomes my thing, then first of all, it'll solve my motivation problems. It'll solve my follow-through problems. I have all these issues with following through on things and staying motivated and abandoning projects. If I find my thing, there's something out there that will fix all of those motivation problems for me. Oh, God, I hope it's this one. Problem is that the brain with attention regulation challenges is vulnerable to this entire cycle. It's vulnerable to the emotional impact of not having found your thing. You have this identity of being somewhat depressed, not having found your people. But sometimes when neurodivergent kids get together, they actually get along really well. They also get frustrated with each other, but there's a fit. I know a kid who's probably neurodivergent who has one friend who's definitely neurodivergent. They get along great, but they also have frequent conflicts. It's strange. They always want to see each other, but even during their time together, there will be an hour where they're just in separate rooms doing their own things. They like it that way. We're sensitive to excitement. When we get excited, we think, oh my God, this is it. This is the thing. This is the thing I've been looking for. We've searched for so long. So we're hungry for it and we find something. We hope it's the thing. And then there's this appeal that if this is the thing, it'll solve all my attention problems. I won't be that kid I used to be who didn't follow through, who abandoned projects. This thing will be different. So we want to adopt it completely. We want to make it our personality. It becomes our identity. It doesn't become a hobby. It becomes who we are. What do you do about this? The first thing is to recognize the pattern. Always, always, if you want to break free of a pattern, the first step is recognizing it. A lot of people will say they know the pattern. I don't think they really do. Overwhelmingly, in my clinical experience, people have an understanding of the pattern, but they usually miss critical elements. There's some interesting medical theory around this. If you look at research on how people heal and solve their problems, very few human beings fail to solve their problems when they truly understand them. The reason problems don't get solved is because people don't understand how to solve them. Understanding of the problem itself is incorrect. For most human beings, if they have a problem in life, it's not a lack of solutions, it's an improper diagnosis. Their understanding of the problem is wrong. That's why the job of a therapist is to help people understand. Let me give you a simple example. Most people think addictions are problems. Someone comes to my office and says, oh my God, I have to stop drinking. I have to stop smoking. This substance is ruining my life in all these specific ways. I have to stop. I have to stop. I have to stop. They see it as a problem. So what's my job? I ask, what does this substance do for you? Let's not talk about the problems it causes. Let's talk about the problems it fixes. Let's talk about this substance as a solution, not as a bad thing, but as a good thing. Because the reason we get addicted to substances isn't because of the problems they cause. We get addicted because of the problems they solve. But we don't see it that way. Sometimes we do. There's the advocate who says this is great. I function fine. I do great. It enhances my life. There are no downsides. It's natural. It's better than other substances. You know, the standard arguments, those people are sometimes in denial about the negative effects. We call this being pre-contemplative about the downsides. I'm not saying these substances aren't helpful in many ways. They solve problems. If you want to break out of this pattern, the first thing is to understand it. Observe it. Notice that you're getting excited. If you have attention regulation challenges, most important skill I teach people, actually I say most important all the time. I don't know if it's actually the most important. The most underrated skill I try to teach all my clients with attention difficulties is this. Everyone wants to control their negative emotions. They want to manage their anxiety, their sadness, their frustration. Learn to manage your positive emotions. Managing your excitement is the most underrated skill for attention regulation. Why is that important? Because we already talked about where that excitement comes from. I want to be this. I want to be that. I want to be this other thing. It creates a bias in how you think. The brightest flame burns out the fastest. This is the core problem. Don't make it your personality. Keep it as a hobby. The problem is we go from nothing to everything. There's no middle ground, no gradual progression. Then we run out of steam. We burn through our excitement. Here's the neuroscience behind this. If we look at the part of our brain that ultimately controls our behavior, we have our motivational center. This part of the brain receives inputs from other brain regions. It gets inputs from parts of our frontal lobe that handle planning, long-term thinking. This part of the brain says, we should do this because 5 years from now, it'll benefit us in this specific way. Then we have another part of the brain, a reward center that responds to pleasure and satisfaction. Part goes, let's do this because it's fun, because it feels good right now. Then we have another part of our brain, the emotional center, the limbic system. This is the part that tells us to do things based on feelings. The pleasure center says amusement parks are fun. Let's go. But the emotional center says they're also scary, so maybe we shouldn't. The frontal lobe says, let's not go to the park today because we have an important commitment on Monday. All of these parts send inputs into the motivational center. It makes a calculation and then makes a decision. The tricky thing about controlling your motivation and behavior is that each of these voices has different weights in the decision. One might get 10 votes, another gets 10 votes, another gets 20 votes. What determines the weight of these different factors, the strength of these factions, is how much you listen to them. Just like in real life. If you're in charge and you have 3 advisors and there's one advisor you consistently listen to over and over, that advisor becomes more powerful. The reason people have difficulty with follow through when they have attention challenges is because when they get excited, heavily influences their behavior. Therefore, their behavior depends on their excitement. And when that depends on excitement, excitement fades, the behavior disappears. This is why we start things and stop things. It's actually not just about one neurotransmitter. Everyone thinks it's about one specific chemical. The reward center is just one part of the brain. One neurotransmitter is just one chemical messenger. One specific brain region is just one part. There are lots of other parts of the brain involved. Because we live in a world of brief content, we tend to reduce and simplify complex things. That's why people with attention challenges struggle so much, because the truth is your brain isn't all one way. The truth is that your brain is incredibly complex, quite possibly the most complex structure on the planet. Many things influence your behavior. Be careful. Regulate your excitement. Learn to control it. It'll last longer, and you'll become less dependent on it. Then a hobby can remain a hobby. Then we get to the second problem. If my hobby is just a hobby and not my identity, then what is my identity? Excellent question. That's a question you should answer by working through the question itself, not by finding a new activity kit and suddenly having the answer magically appear. Answer the question. Do the work. Your work like you would in mathematics. Who do you think you are right now? Where did you get that idea of who you are? Who would you like to be? What can you do to become that person? This is where I'd encourage you to scale back a bit. Focus so intensely on the end goal. Who do you want to be today? Do you want to be someone who reads a certain book or engages in a particular activity? Choose your activity. Who are you? There's this narrative sense of identity we talked about, these integrated emotional experiences. But here's what I think people don't understand. Emotional experiences aren't always big, dramatic moments. Sometimes they're very small ones. I remember a significant one for me. When I first moved to a new city, I didn't have a car. I didn't have much money. I stayed in a place that wasn't in the best location. I only had access to public transportation. I had to change buses twice to get to a grocery store because I wasn't on a convenient transit line. I used to walk 45 minutes because taking the bus took the same amount of time or even longer. The bus ran every 30 minutes. The connection ran every 30 minutes. Sometimes I'd miss the connection and have to wait there for 30 minutes. I just walked 45 minutes every time I went to the grocery store. One way. 45 minutes. Then I'd have to carry groceries back. Those are the kinds of small things that made me who I am. Little things. When you look at the person you are today, what are you upset about? Oh, I'm a loser. I waste my time. I don't do anything productive with my free time. I just scroll endlessly. I'm cynical. I'm isolated. That can be changed. You don't have to scroll endlessly right this moment, but it's hard. Yes, it is. What does hard mean? Hard means that circuit in your brain is underdeveloped. It means that's an advisor you haven't listened to. There's something really powerful once you start engaging with difficulty. Somewhere along the way, I don't know exactly when this happened, hard became a bad thing. Have you noticed this? Somewhere along the way, when things became difficult, we started trying to find solutions to make them easier instead of doing the difficult thing. The moment we did that, sure, it's efficient, but we ran into a very scary biological reality. The human body strengthens through challenge and weakens through ease. Elevators don't give us strong legs. Stairs do. When things became hard for us, we accommodated that difficulty instead of rising up to meet it. Fundamentally, this is what I think is wrong in our current world. When things became difficult, we said, okay, let's make it easier for you. If you look at product development and business, people talk about economic systems like they're inherently evil. I think humans are the ones making choices, but products make things easier for you. They'll deliver to you. You don't even have to think about it. 2-hour delivery now. This is wild. I traveled to another country recently. They don't even have 2-hour delivery there. They have 15-minute delivery. I was at a celebration late at night, 1:30 in the morning, and someone showed me these big delivery applications. They said you can get whatever you want within 15 minutes. I just looked at it in disbelief. I could order a blender at 1:30 in the morning during a holiday, and it would arrive at this person's apartment in 15 minutes. You don't need to do that anymore. Just be impulsive. We can manage your impulses. We can accommodate your impulsiveness. Oh, you forgot to get something and you want to make a drink. We'll take care of it for you. We've started to make life so easy for ourselves. There are vehicles everywhere and we're becoming unhealthy. We're not carrying groceries for 45 minutes anymore. We're getting them delivered to our doorstep. Then we have to compensate as human beings. Since I'm not moving naturally anymore, I have to go to a gym and repetitively lift weights up and down. What are you doing? I'm compensating for the fact that I sit in this chair all day. This is what our lives have become. It's bizarre when you really think about it. Have you noticed this? When things became difficult for us, we said that's okay. Don't struggle. We'll make it easy for you. What do we all want? We all want things to be easy. But here's what we're missing. Growth doesn't come from ease. Development doesn't come from convenience. Strength doesn't come from having everything handed to us. Think about it. Every single thing that has ever made you stronger, more capable, more resilient, came from difficulty, from struggle, from doing hard things. Person you admire most in your life, whoever that is, they became that person through challenges, not through ease. Your brain works the same way. When you consistently choose the easy path, you're training your brain that comfort is the goal. You're strengthening the advisor that says avoid discomfort at all costs. When I were, you're giving that voice more and more votes in your motivational system. Meanwhile, the advisor that says you can handle hard things, you can push through difficulty, that voice gets quieter and quieter. It gets fewer votes until eventually even small challenges feel insurmountable. This is why the hobby becomes the whole personality, because we're so unused to gradual difficulty that when we find something exciting, we think the excitement will carry us through. We think this time will be different because we finally found the thing. But excitement fades. It always does. The brightest flame burns out the fastest, remember? What carries you through isn't excitement. It's the ability to do things even when they're not exciting anymore. It's the ability to continue even when it gets difficult. Ability only develops through practice, through repeatedly choosing to do hard things, not impossible things, not things that will break you, but things that challenge you, things that require effort, things that make you slightly uncomfortable. Your identity isn't found in a hobby kit or a personality test or a career path. Your identity is built through the accumulated experience of showing up for yourself repeatedly. It's built through small choices, daily choices, choices to do the slightly harder thing, to listen to the quieter advisors in your brain, to not always go with the loudest voice, which is usually the one demanding immediate gratification or immediate relief from discomfort. When you understand this, the whole hobby obsession thing starts to make more sense. You're not really looking for a hobby. You're looking for an identity, a sense of self, a feeling of belonging. You're looking for the thing that will make you feel okay about who you are. Here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. No hobby will do that for you. No single activity or interest or passion will give you an identity. Your identity comes from how you show up in your life across all domains. It comes from your values, from what you do when things get hard, from how you treat yourself and others, from the small daily choices you make. The hobby becoming your personality is just a symptom. It's a symptom of not having done the deeper work of figuring out who you are and who you want to be. And that work is uncomfortable. It's much easier to buy a starter kit and declare yourself a new person than to sit with yourself and ask the difficult questions. Who am I right now? Where did I learn to be this way? What parts of this identity do I want to keep? What parts do I want to change? What kind of person do I want to become? Not what do I want to do, but who do I want to be? These questions don't have quick answers. You can't Google them. You can't get them delivered in 15 minutes. You have to sit with them. You have to try things and fail. You have to notice patterns in yourself. You have to be honest about what you're avoiding and why. This is the work, not finding the perfect hobby or the perfect career or the perfect lifestyle. The work is understanding yourself deeply enough that you can make conscious choices about who you're becoming. And that work never ends. You don't arrive at a final destination where you've figured yourself out completely and now you're done. You're constantly evolving, constantly changing, constantly learning new things about yourself. The goal isn't to find the one thing that defines you. The goal is to develop a strong enough sense of self that you can engage with multiple things without losing yourself in any of them. This is why managing excitement is so crucial. When you get excited about something new, that excitement can feel like clarity. It can feel like, finally, this is it. This is who I really am. But excitement is just an emotion. It's data, information about your experience. It's not truth. It's not destiny. It's not identity. Learning to observe your excitement without being controlled by it is a skill. You can notice, oh, I'm really excited about this right now. Interesting. I wonder why. What about this appeals to me? Need does it seem to fill? Can I explore this interest without making it my entire personality? Can I enjoy this without deciding it has to be forever? Can I be curious about it without being consumed by it? That's the practice. Not suppressing the excitement or pretending you don't feel it, but also not letting it dictate your choices completely. Creating space between the feeling and the action. Noticing the pattern where you get excited and immediately want to go all in. Seeing that pattern with compassion and curiosity rather than judgment, because judging yourself just adds another layer of difficulty. Oh, great. Now I'm not only doing the thing again, I'm also a terrible person for doing the thing again. That doesn't help. What helps is seeing it clearly. There I go again, getting excited and wanting to make this my whole life. I've done this before. I know how it usually ends. What if I tried something different this time? What if I let myself be excited, but also paced myself? What if I enjoyed this without deciding it has to define me? That's really hard. Because your brain wants certainty. It wants to know this is the thing. It wants to lock in an identity and feel secure. The uncertainty of I'm trying this and I don't know if it'll stick and that's okay is uncomfortable. We don't like uncertainty, don't like not knowing. We want answers. We want solutions. We want to figure it out and be done. But life doesn't work that way. You don't work that way. You're not a problem to be solved. You're a person to be understood. And understanding takes time. It takes patience. It takes repeatedly showing up for yourself even when you don't feel like it. Even when it's not exciting. Even when it's just boring regular life without any dramatic revelations or personality transformations. This is where the small things matter. Remember those 45-minute walks to the grocery store. That wasn't exciting. That wasn't a defining personality trait. That was just what needed to be done. And doing it repeatedly shaped who that person became. Not because walking is magical or transformative, because showing up and doing what needs to be done, even when it's inconvenient, that builds character, builds the advisor in your brain that says you can handle hard things. Every time you do something difficult, casting a vote for that advisor, you're giving it more weight in your motivational system. You're training your brain that you're the kind of person who does things even when they're hard, not because you're special or chosen or found your calling, but because you decided to do it anyway. That's the identity work. Not finding the perfect hobby, but becoming the kind of person who commit to things, who can push through difficulty, who can enjoy something without needing it to be everything, who can try new things without immediately needing them to solve all their problems, who can be excited about something today and also know that excitement might fade tomorrow, and that's okay. Who can have multiple interests without any single one defining them completely, who can show up for the boring parts, the hard parts, the parts that aren't Instagram worthy or impressive or exciting. The work isn't out there in some hobby or career or lifestyle change. The work is in here in how you relate to yourself, in how you respond to difficulty, in what you do when nobody's watching and nothing feels particularly meaningful. The work is in building a relationship with yourself based on trust and follow through rather than excitement and novelty. It's in keeping small promises to yourself. It's in doing one hard thing today, not transforming your entire life. Just one thing, one small choice that's aligned with who you want to become. Not who you want to appear to be, not what would be impressive or interesting or worthy of talking about. Who you actually want to be in the quiet moments of your regular life. And here's what happens when you start doing this consistently. It's not dramatic. You don't suddenly have an epiphany and everything clicks into place. It's subtle, gradual. You start noticing you can handle things you couldn't handle before. You start noticing the excitement doesn't control you the same way. You start noticing you can commit to something even after the initial enthusiasm wears off. You start noticing you have a sense of self that exists independent of what you're currently interested in. You start noticing you can try new things without them needing to be the answer to all your problems. This is the freedom that comes from doing the actual work instead of searching for the thing that will do the work for you. Because here's the hard truth. Nothing will do the work for you. No hobby, no relationship, no career, no lifestyle change, no personality transformation will do the internal work of understanding yourself and building the capacity to show up for yourself consistently. Work is yours alone. Nobody can do it for you. Nothing can replace it. But the good news is you can do it. You have everything you need right now to start. You don't need to find your passion or your purpose or your calling. You just need to start showing up for yourself in small ways. You need to start noticing your patterns. You need to start managing your excitement instead of being managed by it. You need to start doing hard things in small doses, building that capacity, strengthening that voice in your brain that says you can handle this. And slowly, gradually, any single dramatic moment, you become someone different. Not because you found the perfect hobby, because you did the work of becoming yourself, the self you choose to be, not the self that excitement or desperation or fear chose for you. The self that comes from conscious choice and repeated action and showing up even when it's hard. That's the person you're looking for. Not out there in some activity or lifestyle, but in here, in the daily choices you make about how to show up for your own life. That's the work. But hard isn't bad. Hard is how you grow. Hard is how you become stronger. Hard is how you develop the capacity to create the life and the self you actually want instead of just hoping to stumble into them. The next time you get excited about a new hobby and feel that pull to make it your whole personality, pause. Notice what's happening. Notice the hunger, the desperation, the hope that this will be the thing that fixes everything. And then make a different choice without the pressure. Explore it without the expectation that it has to be your identity. See what happens when you just let it be a thing you're trying instead of the answer you've been searching for. That's the practice. And it's worth doing.